Hello everyone, it is 3:30 on Tuesday, September the 3rd. To be totally honest with you, I was not going to vlog at all today because I have been in the worst mood. And so I said I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to put that out there in the universe. But at the same time, I decided to go ahead and vlog right now because the purpose of my channel way back when I started it was just to be truthful and open and honest and real about the highs and the lows of life as a teacher. So let's quickly rehash my weekend. Wasn't the best weekend. It was a long weekend, which is amazing, and I thought I was going to get all these things done, which some of which I did get done, but I didn't get anywhere near as much as I wanted to get done, despite the fact that I really feel like I spent my entire weekend working on something. So I had some grading that I wanted to get done. I got that done. I had to edit and upload the vlog that went up yesterday, and that is kind of a job, and that takes time. I had some errands I needed to run. I had things I needed to do. Bills had to be paid. All kinds of stuff. And so by about 10 o'clock last night, I just was so sad because I don't feel like I got to really take advantage of the long weekend, and I wasn't feeling rested and refreshed. And I went to bed knowing that I hadn't even gotten to the point where I lesson planned because I had spent so much time doing all those other things. But I went to bed and said, that's fine. I'm gonna wake up early tomorrow anyway, go in early because I don't go to Orange Theory on Mondays. And although today is not Monday, it is technically my Monday of the week since yesterday was a holiday. And you know, I was like, I'll go in tomorrow morning early and get the day planned, and then after school focus on getting the rest of the week planned. Fast forward that to this morning, and you know how you're sleeping, you're just like in a peaceful sleep, and then suddenly for some reason your body recognizes that there's just too much daylight in the room for it to be not time for you to wake up. Well, that happened to me today at 6:20 a.m. I shot open my eyes because I was like, it's really bright in here. There's no way that it's 5:30 in the morning, which is what time I was supposed to wake up. And I was right, because it was 6:20 in the morning, which means I overslept by like an hour because I really wanted to get out of bed at like 5:20, which meant I was probably going to be late to work because I have to be at work by 7:30, and I'm a slow mover in the morning. Then there's traffic. So then I had to text my partner and call her and say, please let them know I'll be late. I still needed to get donuts for leadership because I really wanted to commemorate our 1 month of leadership and all the successes that they had. And I was going to get to school really not having a full picture of what I wanted to do with the day, which is not how I like to operate. So the day just never really got better. I think I was just so off my game because of all of those things happening, and like mentally I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to do the things that really I wanted to do. It was a bad day, and I was really just counting the hours until the day was going to be over so I can go home, like get myself together and like just have a clean slate, a fresh day. So I left school about 10 minutes ago. Oh, and on top of all that, over the weekend I bought a new Keurig that makes iced coffee, and I was like, okay, well at least I'll have my iced coffee in the morning. My brother was kind enough to set up the new Keurig machine last night, but when you wake up an hour late, you don't have time to learn how to use your new Keurig machine that now makes iced coffee. So that was out. So then I said, but that's okay. I was trying to persevere, you guys. I was trying to stay positive in light of all these things. So I said, okay, that's okay. I'll just text my mom and see if she can bring me a Starbucks because she's going to be running a couple errands in the neighborhood. So she was going to do that because my mom is amazing. And then I had to tell her never mind because every local Starbucks that was near me was all out of the vanilla sweet cream cold brew. So I had a whole day with just no comfort of a coffee, which is why right now I'm going to Starbucks because they have replenished their stock to pick up a vanilla sweet cream cold brew because I have things to do. So I'm sorry if you just heard all that and now you're stressed and anxious, or you're like, LaTanya, you're so dramatic, or you're not making, or you're making a big deal of it. I'm sorry, but when I tell you I had a horrible, horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day, I mean it. I really mean it. And it's coming off the heels of a weekend that really wasn't that great either, because I was quite honestly just in a mood. I don't know if my mood is just attributed to hormones or just the different things in my life that I'm trying to like manage. And you know, just side note, like it is hard. Like every now and then, I know being married and having a partner or whatever doesn't solve all the problems in the world, and in some ways it brings about more problems, but it is nice to have someone that can do things like take care of the dogs, go get the dog food, run an errand for you. And so every now and then it just gets to the point where it's just so overwhelming and tiring and difficult to be the person that has to do all the things. And that's how I felt this weekend. So I'm going to go get this Starbucks, and I'm going to go home and just relax and do the things that I didn't get to do yesterday or today, and tell myself that tomorrow's a new day, and hopefully wake up with a new attitude. And then I just found this in the car. I don't know what this is, so yeah, but that's all I have to say. I hope you guys' day went better than mine, and if it didn't, tomorrow's a new day. That's what we're going to tell ourselves. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hi. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. It's actually about 5 o'clock. I have actually left work already, gone to a dentist appointment that I pretended to be sick at so that I didn't have to go to the dentist, only because my hygienist wants to see me a little bit more frequently than what I think is necessary. I was literally just there not that long ago, and I just don't think this appointment is necessary, and I just didn't feel like being at the dentist, so I faked that, and I went to Target to pick up some things, or pick up an item for dinner. But I came back to school because it's on my way home, because I wanted to share with you what I did today, because today was way better than yesterday. And at first I was going to share it with you when I got to school tomorrow, but then I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to show you exactly what we did today because the things of tomorrow would take over. Does that make sense? So I'm just going back to my class right now to show that to you, and to do a couple of quick things so that I'm ready for tomorrow. So I'll see you when I get in my classroom. So I have made it back in my classroom. I'm gonna just go through this relatively quickly so that I can go home. So yesterday, as you know from the clip, was completely horrendous. It sucked on so many different levels. I went home last night or really yesterday afternoon. I left school, got a Starbucks, went home, showered, and just put my AirPods in my ear and just worked the rest of the night to get ready for the rest of the week, which is a world of difference. Like, to just have things mapped out and mentally prepared makes all the difference in the day. So today I actually was excited because today was the day that I was going to introduce the concept of being like investigators when it comes to social studies. And in honor of that, I chose to wear this shirt that Megan sent to me over the summer that says Evidence and Ethics. So if you follow Megan at Too Cool for Middle School, you know that's kind of her thing with teaching history. And I have been saving this shirt for the first day that I decided to do this particular activity. So the lesson that I taught, I think I left the book in the car, but it is a lesson that came from a book that was suggested by her, and I think it's something like, I'm not even gonna make it up, but it's a book that I bought on Amazon, and if I can remember to show it to you tomorrow, I will. And there's just several different lessons that are designed to kind of get kids in the mindset of being like critical of the information that they receive in regards to history lessons that they may have been taught. So this one is kind of like an introductory lesson that focused on Pocahontas and John Smith, and the overarching question that they're trying to answer is whether or not Pocahontas really rescue John Smith. So this resource gives you all the sources and resources that you would need to conduct the lesson, gives you some teaching tips. So, and then I, along with all of that, made some sorry, what I thought I was going to show you, I don't have right there. I, along with that, made a Google slide presentation to kind of walk me through the process and the way that I wanted it to be done. So I think that it went really well. I just wish that I could find some extra copies of this. Otherwise, me coming back in here is kind of like pointless. Let me check my extras. Here we go. So I just introduced the concept of, you know, I kind of started off by saying, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. And there's still an element of me that thinks I would have done a great job. So we're going to start looking at social studies and history on occasion through the eyes of what like a lawyer would do or an investigator would do. And so I said, we're going to practice that skill with the story of Pocahontas. So the first thing that we did is I had the class discuss what they already knew about Pocahontas and John Smith and the story. So they discussed with their group for a couple of minutes. Then I recorded the responses on this chart paper. The ones in orange are from my homeroom class. The statements in green are from my switch class. As you can see, I spent more time with the homeroom class. And then by the time I taught it to my switch class, I realized I needed to condense some time. So I only took one statement per table group. So they talked about that. We shared out. And then we briefly talked about what did we know about European explorers, why were they exploring, what were some of the consequences of them exploring, what were some positives maybe for them and all of that. That was maybe a minute or so. And then I showed them a very brief, about a 4-minute clip of the movie Pocahontas, which was suggested by this lesson. And I just showed them the scene where Pocahontas is basically saving John Smith. So after I showed them the clip, I said, that's really the story that we've all been told, that we're familiar with. But today we're gonna really start to question whether or not that is truly what happened. And, you know, talked about what lawyers do and investigators do, and said we're gonna be thinking about that question throughout the next few days, and by the end of our activity, they're going to be expected to be at a place where they decide whether or not Pocahontas really did rescue John Smith based on what we've discussed and we learned. So we did that, and then I gave them a packet of sources. So they had sources and then they had tools. The sources are typically the pieces of primary or secondary sources that they're gonna read to help them kind of come to a conclusion. So today they just read 2 different sources that are from John Smith's account of what happened. And in relationship to talking about evidence and ethics, I asked them, what is evidence? Everybody knew what evidence was. They weren't really sure what it meant to be ethical or what ethics was. And so I said, except for my switch class, one girl was like, oh yeah, like ethical clothing, ethical practices. So I kind of related it to the idea that when something's ethical, it is pure, it is unaltered, and kind of framed it like that. And so I said, we're gonna be focusing on whether or not we're dealing with ethical pieces of documentation or sources throughout this process. So I said, we're gonna be reading 2 different accounts of John Smith's time with the Native Americans as told by John Smith. So in the sources that we use, at the very top, hopefully you could see it, it gives the title of the source. It tells the students that these are in the words of John Smith, but it also tells them in parentheses that this was adapted. So we talked about what does it mean when they tell you something is adapted, and so we decided upon the phrasing that it means it's been tweaked in some way or another or altered in some way. But I pointed out to them at the bottom, it also gives you the original source. So I said, for me as a reader, now I have more trust in this source. Now I feel like this source has been ethically provided to me because it's giving me the altered version, but then it's also giving me the unaltered version. So what I'm glad I did is, even though this is a very short little passage from this document of John Smith's, it is very difficult to read and understand. So I read source 1.1, which is the first account by John Smith, and then we read source 1.2, which is another account written by John Smith at a later time. So we read through it first, and then we read it like piece by piece and put it in our own words. So for example, the first paragraph from the first source says, arriving at Weruwokomo, I think that's how you pronounce it. Their emperor proudly lying upon a bedstead a foot high upon 10 or 12 mats, with such grave and majestical countenance as drove me into admiration. So I asked the kids to explain in their own words, what is John Smith saying with that? And they pretty much were able to realize that he's saying, oh, he met the emperor and he was like this very majestic man, and he was like so, I don't know if I want to say powerful. Sorry, there's a spider web over here. He was so, there's like a major spider web in this little corner. Sorry, guys. He had such a stature and a presence about himself that John Smith was kind of like forced into admiring him just as a human being. So we read through each paragraph, put it in our own words. We did that for both source 1 and source 2. And then after doing that, as suggested by the lesson plan, I asked the kids, what did you notice between source 1 and source 2 in terms of how John Smith kind of describes his time? And they all were able to recognize that in the first source, the way that John Smith talks about the emperor and the conversation the two of them had makes it sound almost as if these two are friends and they come to this mutual agreement and understanding and it's all good. But then in the second source, the way he describes the emperor makes the emperor sound much more aggressive, much more threatening, and it's not necessarily this easy breezy mutual agreement. So it went really well. We didn't get as far as I wanted to, so we're going to continue what we were supposed to finish today, tomorrow. But I really felt like the kids liked it. Like they seemed to be very into like starting to pick this apart and being told like we're going to really pull this apart and decide whether or not we really think that what we've been told about the whole situation with Pocahontas is actually what happened. So I felt like that was successful. And then in language arts, I did start doing whole group writing. I don't know if this is what the other teachers are doing, but this is what I'm comfortable doing, and this is what I feel good doing because I feel like it's supportive. So if you followed me last year, kind of the same thing. They have a prompt. Analyze the points of view of the Sergeant Major Morris and that of Mr. White towards the monkey's paw in the opening scene of the story. How did the different viewpoints help create suspense? So we tapped the prompt first, let me slow down. Identified what the topic of the writing needed to be, who the audience was, what was the purpose. And in this class, we were a little bit behind the homeroom class because we didn't get to the point where they were able to open up the story, The Monkey's Paw, look at the opening scene and start pulling text evidence that shows what Morris's point of view was towards the monkey's paw versus Mr. White's point of view towards the monkey's paw. So it just felt like a much more successful day, which is not hard because yesterday was one of the most frustrating days of teaching I've ever had. Like, it was the most Monday-est Tuesday I had ever experienced. So, yeah, I wanted to come in and show you guys that in case like I got distracted tomorrow or forgot about it, because that definitely has been something that probably my favorite thing that I've done so far this whole school year, which has only been a month long. And I really enjoyed this shirt from Megan. I wore it with some of these, my pants from H&M. Speaking of which, I don't know if it's the same few people that are asked, but I know I've been asked quite a bit about the outfits being included. And I always respond by saying I do share my outfit every morning on Instagram, and I will probably only do that. And the reason why I'm keeping it there is because it makes these vlogs a little bit shorter. It's a little less for me to edit. And putting them on Insta stories just makes them more like immediate and interactive for me, which I really enjoy. So I hope you guys don't mind. But anywho, now I need to go home. The few things I was gonna take care of here, I can actually do at home through my Google Drive. So I'm probably just gonna straighten up a couple things, then go home and cook and just pray for another positive day tomorrow. So I will see you guys tomorrow, which is Thursday. Hey there, Thursday, about 3:45. I'm actually going to be leaving soon. I'm just cleaning up. We had some donuts today. It was a birthday, Sophie's birthday. I know her mom doesn't mind me saying her name on class because she's already been in a vlog. So her birthday was actually Monday, and then she brought in some donuts today. I am getting ready to pack my little self up. Hold on, let me pour this water. Okay, so I'm getting ready to pack myself up and head out for the day. I have found, and my goal is to leave here as early as possible and do work at home, because it just feels more comfortable to do it at home. But I wanted to share a couple of things before I left. The first thing is kind of like a tech piece that I am embarrassed that it took me this long to figure this out. But a couple of years ago, I bought this Teachers Pay Teachers product, and I don't remember where I bought it from, but if I remember to look it up on my Teachers Pay Teachers account, I will do so in case you're interested. And they're just basically these lesson at a glance slides. So I'm gonna show it to you in my drive. So here is my drive. And when you download it from Teachers Pay Teachers, I believe it just comes as one file or something like that. But at some point, I made a file folder that just said Lesson at a Glance Slides. And you get several different color options. So what I have been doing for this entire first month of school is I had different colors for different subjects. So my Universal Access class was gray. My Switch class for Social Studies was purple. Social Studies homeroom was green. Pink was for Switch Language Arts, and blue was for homeroom language arts, and so on. And the reason why I had two different slides for the same subject is because not each class ends at the same point every day. So what I put on one slide may not be the same as I put on the other. So I may have ended at one point with my homeroom class in Social Studies, but at a totally different point with my Switch class. So the next day, what I need to project on the slide would therefore be different. You follow? So, which is fine, but then what was happening was every morning I had to have multiple tabs open, and it just wasn't fluid and efficient with me going from slide to slide when we were transitioning from one subject to the next. So then I thought, I wonder if I can just copy the different slides from the different color categories, and instead of doing it by color, make a file by day. So let me show it to you, because I feel like the way I just explained that really was not clear. So basically, I had made a slide for every subject matter for Friday. So I went in and made the one for Friday for the homeroom portion of my day. I went in and made one for Friday for my Social Studies Switch class, made the same one for Friday Social Studies homeroom, and did the same thing with language arts. So then I thought, I wonder if I could just copy the Friday slide from each class and make one Google presentation just titled Friday, that has them in the order I need them to be in, so that I can just scroll from one to the next using my handy dandy remote. And I was able to. So now I have a Google slide presentation in this folder that is just titled Friday. So that I think I titled this folder Daily Lesson at a Glance Slides. So now, instead of me having to open up one presentation and close it when I need to go from one subject matter to the next, I can just leave this open all day and then just scroll forward. And I just don't know why I didn't think about that sooner. The only downfall is once you copy one slide from one presentation, like when I copied, let's say, the Social Studies slide and pasted it into this new Google presentation, whatever the color of that slide was that I just copied, the other slides turn into that color, and you have to kind of tweak the font to make sure everything matches if you're particular like I am. So I figured that out today. It just seems like I should have thought about that sooner, but I didn't. Then today we did the actual lesson-wise or listen-wise lesson. It was great because it tied into Pocahontas. It was a very short clip. I think it was about 2.5 minutes, and it was about a Native American tribe that gained federal recognition. I can't remember if I mentioned this already, so my apologies if I'm repeating. So it gave some information on that, but then there was also a segment that said this tribe is associated with Pocahontas and briefly talked about that. And so I really let the kids know that I'm trying this out. I said this is a new platform that I'm playing around with, because when I used it with my homeroom class, it was very like clunky because I didn't quite know the most efficient way to present it and share it. By the Switch class, I had it figured out. So I said, I'm trying this out because across the board, in every grade level, all over the state, if not country, when the kids take the SBAC score or the SBAC test, the listening portion is always the lowest. And so this tool or this resource is something that I'd like to use to see if I can kind of help develop the skills that they need. So I was very upfront about that. so that they had some kind of buy-in, like this is why we're doing it. So in the course of going through this, I said, so we're gonna listen to this clip. I let them know that it was from NPR, and gave them just a brief background of what it was. And I said, one of the things that we want students to understand is that you can listen to something multiple times when you're taking that test. So I said, the first time, we're just gonna listen straight through, just to hear what's being said. And then, and this is how it went with my switch class, my homeroom class, it wasn't so smooth. And then after the first time we listened to it, I said, now I'm gonna give you this graphic organizer that is actually, I think, shows up on their screen when they go online, but I wanted to give them this hard copy just so that they had the practice of writing it down, and I'm gonna collect it for classwork. And I said, this is basically a graphic organizer that you would want to use to kind of help you synthesize the information you just heard. So it has 4 different people or organizations on this side. It's asking them how they felt about this tribe being or gaining federal recognition and why they felt that way. So then I explained, this is an example of what you should be doing when you're taking one of those tests. Now, I'm not gonna provide a form for you, but you're more than welcome to get paper and just start making graphic organizers to help you organize the information. So we listened to it again. I gave them some time to fill in these spots. Then I asked for volunteers to share, and if I got to one, so for example, I asked them about the first one. How did Chief Kevin Brown feel about the tribe being federally recognized? They struggled. It's raining outside and it's super hot. And so I said, do you guys need to hear it again? And they were like, yes. I said, perfect. Another point I want to make is if you are being asked a question and you realize you don't know the answer, don't panic and be like, well, I don't know the answer, I'm just gonna guess. Listen to it again, and this time attentively listen for that piece of information. And then we went down the chart for the other 3 names, and there were a couple that we really had to listen to a couple of times. So especially at the end, it's asking about how some senators of the state of Virginia felt. And I was honest with them and I said, for me, that was the hardest one to identify, because I think, if I were to be honest, that comes at the tail end of the whole clip. And honestly, by that point, I know that I kind of get distracted and I'm not as attentive with my listening as I was earlier, and that's why I'm not able to grasp it. So there were 2 boys that thought that they knew what was stated, so I asked them to share, and I said, let's listen again, and if they're correct, I'll give them some table points, and they were correct. One was able to identify how the senators felt, and then the other one was able to successfully identify why they felt that way. And then we listened and confirmed. So I really, really like the site so far. I've only used it once. What I did is I linked it on Google Classroom. So for homework tonight, they are going to be taking the quiz that goes along with the listening passage. And I encouraged them to take this paper home with them to use it to help them take the quiz, and said you can listen to it multiple times, because I really want them to get in the habit of understanding that that is an option for them. So I really like it. I'm probably going to have to try and do a donor's choose to get this subscription, because it is pricey. That's my only gripe, is that it is, I think, $300 if you want access to just one set of subject matter material. But if you want access to everything, I believe it's $400. I can't afford that. So in the very near future, I'm gonna be crafting up a donors choose to see if I can get it financed that way. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I wanted to share that with you. The day was pretty good, and yeah, that's it. So I'm gonna go home. I need to get caught up on some grading from some late work that was turned in, because I have some kids that are in panic because it's showing up as a missing assignment. And I wanna say that happens when you don't turn things in on time, because I collect everything, and anything that's turned in late is in a separate pile and gets graded when I can get to it. So I need to get to it so they can stop asking me about it. So that's it. I'm gonna talk to you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, so I will see you then. Hello, I'm actually in the parking lot of a shopping center by my house. I'm getting ready to go to Party City. It's after 5:30, much later leaving school than I thought. But I'm going to Party City because I need to get some decorations for our 6th grade rally, which is a 50s diners theme. So I'm going in here to see if there's some decorations I can get with school funds, of course. And hoping to get a discount. So maybe if I'm not too shy, I'll bring you in there with me. Well, I'm home. That didn't last for very long. I was literally in Party City for maybe 5 minutes, if that. I went in, I asked them if they had like 50s themed items, because the rally has a diners theme, and they told me to go to aisle 7, and one of the employees pointed out the section that he said it was going to be in, and there was nothing in that little area that was 50s themed. They had like some 60s type things, some 70s things, plenty of Cinco de Mayo stuff, but nothing 50s diner themed. So I'm gonna have to look on Amazon and see if there's anything there. The only problem is I don't know if I'm allowed to order from Amazon just because of bookkeeping purposes. So I'm waiting to hear back from one of the assistant principals about that. So unfortunately, I did not pick up the camera while I was in my classroom today. I meant to after school, and then I started talking and then got distracted. After school, I had to kind of get things together to get set up for parent conference week, which is coming up. With it being the first time that I'm doing it at the middle school level, it was just like me making sure I understood how it works, because now we have to meet with about 50 sets of parents, and I wasn't sure, do Jenna and I, my teaching partner, do we do it together, do we do it separately? Then I had to make the sign up genius and all of that, and I needed to show Jenna some things before I left. But I wanted to share what we did in class to kind of discuss the look at Pocahontas and John Smith, and I think I'll wait until Monday to share that, because I don't feel like it'll make a lot of sense if I don't have some of the things that I used. But I'll share that on Monday. So generally speaking, today went really well. We wrapped up, like, I'm definitely behind on that lesson where I thought I was going to be. We've only looked at the accounts of John Smith, filled out one of the forms that goes with it, talked as a class. I asked my class after the lesson to raise your hand if you're convinced that Pocahontas rescued John Smith. No one really raised their hand. I think one girl raised it and then put it down. I don't know if it's because she changed her mind or peer pressure. Then I said, raise your hand if you're absolutely certain that Pocahontas did not rescue John Smith. No one raised their hand for that. But when I said, if you're still unsure, raise your hand, and everybody's unsure. So I said, great. Next lesson, we're gonna look at some different accounts from historians, and then maybe that'll kind of sway you one way or the other. So we did that. And we also continued our whole group writing for the monkey's paw. I really feel like this is the right thing for me to do, like doing this guided writing. I know it's putting me behind my counterparts, the other teachers on campus that teach social studies and language arts in 8th grade, but it feels like the right thing for me to do. So I'm gonna do it and suffer the consequences. I think in the long run, it's good for the kids. So, but overall, I had a good day. I'm getting ready to shower. I'm gonna spend some time trying to get some things done so that my weekend is much better than the one I had last weekend, filled with lots of rest and leisure and as little work as possible. We don't have students on Monday. I have school on Monday, but we don't have students because it's day-to-day where we look at data. But that's it. If you enjoyed this week's vlog, give this video a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please do. Of course, I'm still trying to get to 10,000 on Instagram, so if you're not following me there, follow me there, especially if you want to see my outfits every day, because I do put them on Insta stories each morning. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all the new people that have subscribed. I feel like I've gotten quite a few more people on my little subscriber count in the past couple of months, so I want to say welcome. Aside from that, I will be sure to check in with you guys sometime next week, and I hope everything is going well. So talk to you later. Bye.